My third book is called The Nightingale's Castle, and it's about Elizabeth Bathory. So in Hungarian, that would be Bartri Shebet, but I think we'll just stick with the English pronunciations for simplicity. So I had never heard of Elizabeth Bathory, but in the back of my mind, I had some familiarity with the so-called Blood Countess, who allegedly had murdered girls and bathed in their blood to preserve her youthful good looks. But I first came across her in print when I was looking at the Guinness Book of Records with my daughter, and her entry records her as the most prolific female serial killer of all time, allegedly murdering 650 young virgins and bathing in their blood to preserve her youthful looks. Now, I think partly because I'm a lawyer, I read that and I thought, really? I mean, where would you even find the time? I mean, you're a busy countess, you've got a very full-on schedule, and you're meant to find the time to murder all these girls. It just didn't ring true to me. So I thought, I have got to have a look at what's going on here. So when I started to research it, I discovered this, frankly, astonishing story, not of a bloodthirsty murderess, but instead a cultured, intelligent, very wealthy woman who continued to independently manage these vast estates on her own, even after she became a widow. But of course, once she was a widow, she was vulnerable because she lacked the protection of a man, and also she was very, very rich. Now, the powerful men of Hungary, that is the Habsburg Austrian king and his Count Palatine, Gregory Thurzo, they tolerated this for a while, but then as soon as she got to, guess what, 50, then that's it. They'd had enough, and they decided it was about time that she ceded all her wealth and lands to her sons-in-law and to her heir, who was, of course, although he was only a child, he was controlled by his tutor. So basically, they manipulated the situation and charged her with all of these, frankly, preposterous crimes, knowing that it would bring about her downfall. And as soon as she was accused of these crimes, she would have to relinquish her great wealth to the powerful men around her. And another important fact was that, guess what? The Habsburg king owed her vast sums of money. So, of course, if she's convicted of these crimes, then the debt would have to be forgiven and he would never have to repay her. So, pretty compelling reasons to make these allegations. And as I was researching, she began to strongly remind me of Anne Boleyn, who was another woman in history who was basically accused of preposterous crimes as soon as she became inconvenient to a powerful man, in that case, of course, Henry VIII. So it was something that, it was a concept I was quite familiar with. And so, yeah, I started researching it, and the more I read into it, the more convinced I became that Bathory could be innocent. And I wasn't the only person to think that. There are leading lawyers and academics in Hungary who believe the same and have highlighted the very fundamental deficiencies in the legal process, even given the standards of the time. Of course, we don't compare it to, you know, the process we have now. But so it just wasn't fair and proper. And of course, the interesting thing about Bathory is she never had a chance to put her side of the story. She never appeared in court to defend herself, was never given that right. So, yeah, I just thought this was really, really interesting. And also, she was arrested alongside her 4 accomplices. Now, they were a young lad who was a kind of jack of all trades, a washerwoman, a servant, and her children's former wet nurse. Now, again, I thought, that doesn't really sound like your typical gang of mass murderers. So I I found almost the accomplices to be as interesting as Bathory herself. So I felt that the whole situation was ripe for a feminist retelling, if you like. Sometimes when you take, so Bathory is quite a big topic to take on, and partly because of the political background, but also because it's quite grim, right? It's a dark tale. So I didn't really want to write, and nor as a reader would I want to read a very dark tale like that. So for a while, I struggled with it, whether I'd be able to take it on as a topic. And I was always looking for a thread of positivity through the story, a thread of redemption, if you like. And one of the very interesting things I came across in my research was that, according to her 19th century Austrian biographer, she had an illegitimate child at age 13, just before she married Ferenc Nadasti at 14. And this child, of course, was bundled up and given away to a peasant to look after because it was so shameful. And history has not recorded anything about the child after that, save that it was a girl. So when I read this, I thought, great, that's my angle on all of this. It's to pick up that lost thread in history of Bathory's illegitimate child and continue it on, and then bring back this child of unknown parentage and introduce her into the castle of a woman who has a very bad reputation of supposedly killing young girls. I am working obviously on my next book, and as you'll know, the lag between a book being published and written is quite a long time. So of course we're researching and writing the next book even before the so-called new book comes out. So yes, I am writing another historical fiction novel set in a similar time period, sort of 17th century, and again along the lines of the feminist take on real history.